In April of 1960, the quiet community of McAllen, Texas was shaken by a tragedy that would echo for decades. Irene Garza, a 25-year-old schoolteacher, beauty queen, and beloved daughter, walked into Sacred Heart Church on Holy Saturday, expecting only to make a confession. She never returned home. What followed was a mystery steeped in faith, secrecy, unanswered questions, and a search for justice that would span more than half a century. For years, the truth remained buried beneath fear, silence, and institutional protection. Yet the memory of Irene Garza refused to fade. Her family, her friends, and her community never stopped fighting to uncover what really happened that night. This is the story of a young woman whose light touched everyone around her and the long, painful journey to reveal the darkness behind her disappearance. A story of resilience, courage, and a battle for justice nearly 60 years in the making. Irene Garza was an American schoolteacher and former beauty queen whose death remained under investigation for many years. She was last seen alive on April 16, 1960, after going to confession at a church in McAllen, Texas. She was reported missing the next morning. After what became the largest volunteer search ever conducted in the Rio Grande Valley at that time, her body was located in a canal on April 21. An autopsy determined that she had been sexually assaulted before being killed, and that the cause of death was suffocation. Irene was born in 1934. Irene Garza was the daughter of Nicholas and Josefina, who owned a dry cleaning business in McAllen, Texas, in the South Texas border region known as the Rio Grande Valley. By the time she reached her teenage years, the family business had become prosperous, allowing them to relocate from McAllen's south side to a wealthier area on the north side. She graduated from McAllen High School, where she became the first Latina to serve as a twirler or head drum majorette. Garza earned the title of 1958 Miss All South Texas Sweetheart and also served as homecoming queen at Pan American College. When she died, Garza was teaching second grade, working with low-income students at an elementary school on McAllen's south side. In a letter she had written to a friend before she vanished, she described herself as very shy but said she felt fulfilled by her work. She mentioned recently becoming secretary of her parent-teacher association and said that the role had helped her gain confidence. As a devoted Catholic and a member of the Legion of Mary, she took her faith seriously. In the same letter, she said she found comfort in attending daily Mass and receiving communion. On Saturday, April 16, 1960, Garza, who still lived with her parents, told them she was going to confession at Sacred Heart Church in McAllen. Because of her striking appearance, she was often noticeable in the congregation, and several parishioners recalled seeing her there that night. When she failed to return home, her parents first assumed she had stayed for the Easter Vigil Massachusetts. By 3 a.m., with no word from her, they went to the McAllen Police Department to report her missing. On April 18, passers-by discovered several of her belongings, her purse, her left shoe, and her lace veil, scattered over several hundred yards along a road in McAllen. Authorities and volunteers launched what became the largest search effort in Rio Grande Valley history at that point. A woman pretending to be Garza called the family claiming she had been kidnapped and taken to a hotel in nearby Hidalgo, but the call was proven false. Another individual told a waitress in Edinburgh that he had killed Garza, but this turned out to be a drunken joke. Garza's body was recovered from a canal on April 21, several miles from the spot where her other belongings had been found. A post-mortem examination showed that she died of suffocation. She had been raped while unconscious and had been beaten. There were bruises around both eyes and on the right side of her face. Any physical evidence that might have identified her attacker, such as blood, hair, or semen, appeared to have been washed away during her time in the water. Law enforcement questioned roughly 500 people across several Texas cities, including known sex offenders as well as Garza's relatives, co-workers, and former boyfriends. Nearly 50 polygraph tests were administered, and authorities offered a $2,500 reward for information, the highest amount ever offered in a Rio Grande Valley murder case at the time. Later, South Texas businessmen added $10,000 to the reward fund. Suspicion soon turned toward the priest who had heard her last confession, Father John Fite. Fite had been serving at the McAllen church after completing seminary training in San Antonio. Parishioners reported that his confession line moved unusually slowly that evening and that he repeatedly stepped away from the sanctuary. When the canal was drained days after her body was found, a photo slide viewer belonging to Fite was discovered. Other priests noted scratch marks on his hands after the Easter Vigil Mass and said it was unusual for him to take Garza to the church rectory for confession, as he was said to have done that night. Although McAllen police initially announced that Fite passed polygraph tests, the results were later characterized as inconclusive. Fite first denied hearing Garza's confession in the rectory but later admitted that he had. He explained his repeated absences from the sanctuary by saying he broke his glasses that night and often fidgeted with them while listening to confessions. Fite said that after breaking his glasses, he drove back to the pastoral house near his church to retrieve another pair. When he arrived, he realized he did not have a key, so he climbed up to the second floor to get inside. He claimed the scratches on his hands came from scaling the exterior brick wall of the building. 3 weeks before Garza's death, another woman, Maria America Guerra, had been sexually assaulted while kneeling at the communion rail in a different Catholic church in the McAllen area. Rumors suggested that Fite was responsible, but church leaders urged people not to consider that a priest could have committed such a crime. Fite acknowledged visiting a priest at that church on the day Guerra was attacked but denied assaulting her. He was later charged with rape, and the trial ended in a hung jury. In 1962, instead of going through a second trial, Fite pled no contest to a misdemeanor charge of aggravated assault and paid a $500 fine. Many years later, he said he had not understood that a no contest plea would count as a conviction. After the legal issues involving the Guerra case, Fite was sent to Assumption Abbey, a Trappist monastery in Missouri. An abbot there told monk Dale Tacheny that Fite had killed someone and asked Tacheny to counsel Fite for a few months to determine whether he was suitable for monastic life. Tacheny later said that Fite confessed to harming one young woman and killing another. Tacheny stated that he did not believe it was his role at the time to judge Fite. Fite's confession remained unreported to law enforcement for many years. Fite struggled to adapt to life at Assumption Abbey. He was then transferred to Jemez Springs, New Mexico, to a treatment center for troubled priests run by the Servants of the Paraclete. Afterward, he joined the order as a staff member and eventually rose to a supervisory position. Among the priests treated there was James Porter, who had already begun molesting children in the 1960s. Fite approved him for placement in another parish. Porter was later defrocked and convicted after sexually abusing up to 100 children. Fite left the priesthood in the 1970s. He married, moved to the Phoenix area, and had 3 children. For 17 years, he worked as a food charity volunteer with the Society of St. Vincent Delaware Paul. In 2002, Tacheny decided he could no longer remain silent about Fite's confession. Believing the killing had occurred in San Antonio because Fite had trained there, Tacheny contacted authorities in that city. That same year, the investigation into Irene Garza's death was reopened. Texas Ranger investigator Rudy Jaramillo reached out to Joseph O'Brien, a priest who had worked with Fite around the time of the murder. Although O'Brien had previously claimed during a 2000 television interview that he knew nothing about the case, he admitted to Jaramillo that Fite had confessed to him shortly after the incident. Later in 2002, the polygraph examiner who had tested Fite in 1960 said he doubted the accuracy of the reported results. The original report stated that Fite passed the test, but it was later altered to read inconclusive. The examiner said he had always believed Fight failed. Irene Garza, who served as district attorney of Hidalgo County from the 1980s until 2014, did not bring the Garza case before a grand jury until 2004. Tacheny, O'Brien, and Fight were never subpoenaed, and the grand jury chose not to indict Fight. O'Brien died in 2005. Garza resisted reopening the case, arguing that the early investigation had been poorly done, that O'Brien was suffering from dementia when questioned, and that there was no physical evidence. He accused Jaramillo of improperly providing Tacheny with details about the crime after Tacheny mistakenly believed it happened in San Antonio. Garza angered Garza's family when he asked, "Why would anyone be haunted by her death? She died. Her killer got away." In 2014, District Court Judge Ricardo Rodriguez ran a campaign to replace Garza as district attorney, and the Garza case became a central issue in the race. Rodriguez stated that he wanted to secure justice for the Garza family and promised to re-examine the case if elected. After Rodriguez won, Garza attempted to appoint him as a special prosecutor for the Garza case in the days following the election. Rodriguez declined, saying he preferred to review the evidence himself once he officially took office in January 2015. In April of that year, he announced that the investigation into Garza's death had been reopened. In February 2016, Fight was arrested in Scottsdale, Arizona. He was 83 years old at the time and appeared in court using a walker. He was extradited to Texas the following month and held at the Hidalgo County Sheriff Adult Detention Facility. Fight pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors requested a bond of $750,000, while the defense sought a $100,000 bond, noting that Fight had stage 3 kidney and bladder cancer. Judge Luis Singletary ultimately set the bond at $1 million. Status hearings took place in June and November 2016, and discovery was still underway as of November. In February 2017, a judge scheduled a trial for late April, and Fight remained under medical care at the county jail. In April 2017, the defense filed a motion requesting a change of venue, arguing that Fight could not receive a fair and impartial trial in Hidalgo County. They submitted a 700-page document claiming that reporters had portrayed Fight as a murderer and suggesting that his avoidance of prosecution had resulted from protection by the Roman Catholic Church. Around March, Tacheny provided closed-door deposition testimony against Fight, allowed under Texas law due to his age and exclusive knowledge of the case. On May 24, Judge Singletary considered arguments from both sides regarding the venue change. On June 7, he denied the request, concluding that the defense had not shown that community prejudice would prevent a fair trial. Fight appeared in court on July 19 for a pre-hearing, and the trial was expected to begin on September 11. However, on September 10, the court postponed the trial because one of Fight's attorneys had a scheduling conflict related to another high-profile murder case in the county. Fight appeared in court on September 11. Not wearing a prison uniform for the first time, anticipating the start of his trial that week. The initial stage of jury selection took place in mid-September, but the trial was rescheduled for mid-October. On October 30, the defense filed another motion for continuance. Jury selection was moved to November 14, and the November 6 trial date was pushed to November 28. On December 7, Fight was found guilty of Garza's murder. During the sentencing phase, his attorney asked that Fight be granted probation, pointing out that he had no felony convictions in the decade since Garza's death. Prosecutors requested a 57-year sentence, symbolic of the number of years that had passed since the crime. On December 8, 2017, the jury sentenced Fight to life in prison. Fight was held at the W.J. Estelle unit, located about 10 miles north of central Huntsville, Texas. He died of natural causes on February 12, 2020.